Good evening, everyone. I've got a next guest with me here tonight, and I'm actually really happy that she got the chance to sit here and have a conversation with us. Her and I met through the 2016 batch of youth ambassadors with the U.S. Embassy, and we were attached to the same mentor, and we had some really good conversations. So it's only fair for me to bring her here so you can have a bit of an insight as to what we would have talked about. Can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, my name is Janaya Johnson. I'm 16 years old. Uh, I'm currently at Lower Six Arts at the Bishop's High School. I'm continuing, so I'm a old student, as they would say. Still student now. Um, so I picked my major. It's sociology, sociohistory.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm doing. And at present, I think I'm just trying to take it day by day with all the chaos of life.
Is how you guys pronounce it? The Bishop's High School. You don't forget the THC at the start.
No, which is funny because the sixth form jersey,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have the.
No, it
It
doesn't.
doesn't have
It's
the
just
the.
Bishop's High School. Yeah,
Yeah, just
it's
yeah.
just Bishop's High School. I remember when we first started, the children made it a thing to tell us that it's not Bishop's High School. It's the
The
Bishop's High School. It's like, okay, I'm sorry. I know that I'm not from here.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I have to just abide. So what I wanted to ask, you're now in sixth form. Can you talk us through the transition from primary school, which would have been, really the start of your education, into secondary and now into figuring out what it is that you want to do with the rest of your life in sixth form?
Um, I think for me, which is something that you find rare, I think at that first form stage is that
Yeah.
bishops is always a lot of children's second choice. It's
Mm-hmm.
always not the first choice. It's
Yeah.
always Queens. But for me, I'm going to be honest with you. I think after 5 years, I can be honest
Mm-hmm.
with myself. Every time somebody asks, oh, what school do you want? I generally just said what everybody else said. I don't think I truly believed I wanted this particular school. My mom always used to say, because I went to a private school,
Mm-hmm.
lucky enough, privileged enough. I mean, private schools aren't the most expensive in this part of the world, but still, it's money. And
Mm-hmm.
my mom used to always say, teacher too, I think I told you, 6 years, I mean, 5 years, and whatever school you get, 6 years, yes, then, and whatever school you get, you're going to.
Yeah.
So I guess I had to the back of my mind, I had to do well, but it was. So when I came first day of school and so many children, were like, oh, like I didn't, they were so fussy because, a little side note, I have one of my really great friends, I think I told you about when we were at Oasis. She
Yeah.
actually really wanted Queens. And the thing is now, sadly, fortunately, I guess too, it's a bit of a full circle moment because now she is at Queens um for, you know, her slow six year. So I think, it's a full circle moment for her, but I remember for me at the time, I didn't really mind. Like some children really did beat themselves up for that first month or so, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, I didn't really mind. So I was a bit rare for me, I think, for a child my age. People be like, oh, how you didn't, because I didn't mind. But then coming through, but yeah, I think going through second and third and fourth and fifth for me is just to like take it day by day. Because,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of got into sixth form within like the throw of it, sports. Sports is a huge thing, all
Mm-hmm.
schools, big thing. And I think after 2 years in a pandemic, they're like, we gotta go. And then the thing is, 2019, we rain. So we had to have, just the march past on the court.
Yeah.
And then we just had field events. And so, the last year of sports really wasn't a bishop sports. And so
Mm.
obvious, and so, I think from today, um, we Allen House had the field. And so usually we just had like a half an hour practice from 12 to 12:30. But from today, they decided
Mhm.
that from 12 to 12:30 optional, but you go back for 12:30 to mark your name. You come back down at 1 to
Mhm.
3. All day on the court, 1 to 3. And the teachers are like, it's every year thing. Obviously, you can have a couple that are like, you know, But for me, what I
Yeah.
can say, I think after 5 years, I don't care if I have to miss like for the smaller ones, of course. I don't really mind if I have to miss a
Mhm.
class because those are the memories that stuck with me. The march past
Yeah.
memories, hearing the children play the steel pan memories, in doing
Hmm.
drama, doing elocution. Those were the memories. I literally cannot remember anything I learned in a second form or third form classroom. I mean, I'm probably using the knowledge, but I don't
Hmm.
remember what test I did or how much I got on the test. I don't remember any of my report cards from then. But I remember, honestly, it's noise, but the best music to your ears during sports time, hearing the competition right in the school
Hmm.
grounds, no better feeling. So for me, I'm really just like, I'm looking at them now and I'm like, from my perspective now, all these years later, these are the memories that are gonna keep you alive. And something I'm gonna like, oh, like why can't I come back to the school? Come back for those things. I'm looking at them now and I'm like, from my perspective now, all these years later, these are the memories that are gonna keep you alive. And something I'm gonna like, oh, like why can't I come back to the school? Come back for those things. But third form sort of, you know, I always say third form was our trouble year. Not my classmate in particular, but like they got into so much trouble that year. So I don't know why. And fourth form was online, and then so I had as much experience as I could have had. I had a bit more than the ones now, and I've had a bit less than the children who were, I think, lucky enough to have almost finished or were finished with high school by the time the pandemic rolled around. I think if there's anything that I can learn from the whole transition to high school to lower six, because I still in lower six second day feels like
Yeah.
I'm already behind because everybody's just saying it's hard, it's hard, it's hard. The only teacher, which surprisingly, law, Miss Mason, which is law, she was
Hmm.
the only teacher that said she was the only teacher. I don't think the word hard came out of her mouth. She didn't. I don't think she didn't say that word. Um, but if there's anything I can say, so just like take it day by day, because figuratively or even literally, you never know when next pandemic is gonna hit. You know, you're
Yeah.
never gonna know like what's the next. So I think that's like as much of as my transition. Just go with the flow and enjoy it. Honestly, you never know what's gonna happen.
So here's where we contrast because I knew that I wanted to go to Bishops when I wrote common entrance. That was the main thing I'd said to everybody, all of my family members, when we had conversations. And I'd say, "Oh, you're writing exams. School, do you want to go to Bishops?"
Mm,
I remember my class teacher at the time, Mr. Success, major props to him because he played a fundamental role in creating the individual that I am right now. But he had said, aim for QC, and then if you fall on bishops. And I think I told you this, right?
yeah.
And in my lips, I'm like, I hated QC. I'm so sorry to the QC people looking at this, but I hated QC. And I was like, why is he telling me to go for QC of all schools? Like, I don't know why, but I hated Queen's College. And I felt so offended that he told me this. I mean, now looking back at it, I understand what he was saying. Aim for the sky, and if you fall on what you want. There's no place higher than Queen's College. So even if you got it, you could have decided that you wanted to go to Bishop's instead. So I'd gotten St. Roses, and before I even got my results, I knew that my mother would have known the school that I got before I got it. Somehow, teachers
Yes.
figure out things. And that was nerve wracking for me. And I remember my mom woke up probably 2 days before we got results, and she was like, "I dreamt you in this school uniform." I'm not gonna say the name of the school, but I was stressed. I was like, "How am I gonna go to this school?" I know that I did really well, and then I got roses, and I didn't know about St. Roses, and I was even more stressed because I'm like, I wanted bishops, and I
Yeah.
got roses. But I enjoyed first to fifth, and as you said, I can't remember a test that I did. I can't remember an assignment, but I remember all of the memories. I remember our class had a really bad name from first to third. We were known for being noisy and never disrespectful. It was
Yeah.
always the noise. We always found a way to have fun, whether it be as ironic as it is. We had a food fight in first form, and I think there was still mashed potato on the wall after we left. Yeah, we had a whole food fight. We had a thing that we created. I mean, the first week where we said we were going to do all these different activities, it was not realistic. But our little selves coming from grade six to first form, we're like, you know what? We want to be like these American schools and have these different days, like opposite day and so on. Never worked out. But mere fact is those memories that we remember, those little arguments that we had as peers, as classmates, and those little moments, that's really what shapes your high school life. And I always wanted to know why persons would tell me they wish they were still in school, and I wanted to get out of high school as fast as possible because I'm like, these teachers are stressing me out. I
Mhm.
hated waking up early to get dressed to go to school. It was a task, and now that I'm out of it, I really wish I'd give anything to go back just for a few years. But when I transitioned to from St. Roses to Bishops, that sixth form period was really good for me. I made some amazing friends. We had some really great experiences, and for me, sixth form was the time where I figured out what it is that I wanted to do with my life. I really thought that I was going to be doing law, and law is an amazing topic. It's really, really good for you to get into. It's the scope is large, but it just wasn't for me. And I figured that out early, and I ended up in international relations, politics, diplomacy,
Mhm.
whatnot. Best decision I made. So I tell anybody, if you want to take those extra 2 years to figure yourself out and really sort out where you want to go to sixth form, enjoy the experience, make memories with your friends, go out as much as you can because when you hit university, nobody's there to be behind you and tell you you've got your assignments to do, you've got this to do. And moving on from there, you would have touched on the transition from in class, which you would have had that experience. Unfortunately, some students not been able to experience what it was like to be in person for a good period to virtual classes. What was that transition like for you during that time?
Um, I mean, for me, I think everybody was like, "Oh, we're gonna go back." Everybody was either like, um, "Oh, these things will happen again." I'm like, "Things don't come again. Like if they come again, it doesn't affect us. Like stuff this be right in Suriname or Brazil, and it's like,
Mhm.
you know, we don't really get touched by much."
Diana's blessed.
And so I remember the last day of school. I think the ministry at the time did a really great job in protecting its
Mhm,
students. Our country as
mhm,
a whole is a bit questionable, but its students and its teachers, they sent us home quickly. That first case, they were like, yeah, no, they're not even taking the
yeah.
chance. And so I think that last day, I think we really had a. I didn't think we knew it was going to be our last, but
Mhm,
we had we had a relatively good day. I think because it wasn't. We shut like in March, so school was about to close anyway. Less
mhm,
than a month before school was going to close, so things are winding down. And you were home just waiting, waiting, waiting. I find I love solace. I absolutely love being alone.
6:18 p.m.
Um,
12 notifications.
and for me, I think that when I think we started back school probably like the second week in September. So that was like months. From March to September was months. Some teachers, we had like a couple of teachers that tried, I don't want to like finish off the term at least.
yeah.
And so we did that, and I was home for most of the rest of it. And then, you know, I think the schools finally decided and the ministry finally decided what they were going to do, and some schools starting their own initiative. And so, well, online got here, online learning got here, and I think Bishops had a really great system. They didn't just let
Mhm,
the teachers go haywire. You had your email addresses, which we still use to this day. They had
yeah.
their own website. It forced you to become very much more technologically conscious.
Mhm,
Um, and so, timetables out, a bit of an online orientation to like get used to the platform for the students who may not have known. They gave us a couple of tips, and so I tried out different things of places to sit because
yeah.
I think at that point I was home alone because when schools opened in September, my mom being a teacher is still supposed to be at home,
Mhm,
but she was a head teacher, and she just never is at home. She just never stays at home. She
mhm.
loves, I don't know what it is. She's just never at home.
It's
Um,
it's
and
different.
dad has to go to work, right? So just me alone all day. But I'm a child where I don't know what it is. If I go on that Google Classroom and I see a missing assignment, no, I,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
like, and also I think because I was online, like, for
Mhm.
lack of better words, you can like cheat. Like you can, even on the assignments, you have
Yeah.
a free way. Like the internet is right there. Like you see some children handing in mediocre work. You see at the end of the term when they would like email you your grades. Why are you not doing good? I mean, I
Yeah.
get some children have things at home and stuff like that, but I feel like for me, I think I took opportunity out of the fact that I had all this access. And I know there's two things. Well, it's a bit more nuanced, but I know some people had that opportunity and for whatever reason they chose not to take it. And then some other
Yeah.
people had genuine cases of like home life is rough. I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather be back at school. But I think I did the work, did what I had to do. Um, and after a while, I just ended up on my bed. That was just it. Get up. It was some points where like, okay, class starts at 9. You might have registration on the homeroom at like anytime between 8:30 to 9. Get up at like
Mm-hmm.
8, get ready. I'm not a breakfast person, so I'll probably take a break. Teachers might not always have a class. I might try to do an assignment in between. I might listen. I don't know. I mean, I think I listened for the most part. Like it was fine for me. I know a lot of children had, troubles either because of the fact they were home, family issues or like internet issues or stuff like that. But I had a good experience. I think I learned okay online. Um, I think the only thing for me is that so for some teachers, they would have you have on your cameras. I think they quickly learned that wasn't going to work. Because for me, if I'm in a class and I have my camera on, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to focus on I mean, like with this one-on-one, it's fine because it's more relaxed since, just us. But like if I'm at
Yeah.
class, my focus is going to be on myself and making sure that like I have to
Yourself.
find a
Yeah.
proper place in my house.
Mhm.
I have to put on school clothes. I have to hope that like the internet doesn't go. Oh, it's just a lot. So I try my best to participate so they don't have to be like, oh, like everybody got put on the cameras. But most teachers were just over it. I mean, it's the only thing is that when teachers had to go to school now because the fifth formers at that time were in school, the
Yeah.
internet was not the best, so teachers had their own issues with that. But I think for us, you know, we I think it's good to have when schools have a good support system. The school has BOSA, they have the PTA, they have the board, they have the teachers themselves, and then well, they have the
Mhm.
ministry. So
Yeah.
again, very privileged position to be in. So
Mhm.
for me, overall, it was fine. But when going back to school, only thing for me, I was like, how did I ever do this in school? How for the life of me was I waking up at like 5:30 in the morning, getting ready to go to school. So we did, I think Monday, Wednesday, Friday go to school, Tuesday, Thursday stay home. Next week, Tuesday, Thursday go to school, Monday, Wednesday, Friday stay home. I got used to that very quickly. It was fine. I think that was my best time I had. I get the best of both worlds. So now they
Mhm.
say school is open fully. And it's a bit annoying because at that time, I think COVID was starting back up again. And it was like, I feel like we were in a very vulnerable position because it was almost as if the school didn't learn from what it did last term when you tried to open school and children got sick. I was very lucky to never and still haven't gotten COVID. I don't think I got it unknowingly. I just, to my knowledge, never had it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of becoming frustrating because it's like, we're the fifth farmers now. We need to learn. You can keep these younger ones at home. You can. I mean, I get the internet in schools, but you can't keep them home. Like they're in school. Um, their schedule is all over the place. And then because you have to teach them in school, we already aren't getting taught. It's just and it's like somebody's gonna get COVID because they were packing them up and the ministry just kept sending more children year after year. We don't have the classroom space for them.
Yeah.
Packing them up and after that you have to go back online. I think we ended up going back online for the rest of the term. And then we came back out fully, I think everybody fully after they got things going and found a schedule that worked for them. But for us fifth formers now, it was fully. The others, I think, were still coming on and off. Finally, they listened. And I think I was at that point where I was like, I have to do this every single day. Ugh, ugh, every day. But I guess you have to adjust. Now I'm like, how did I? I'm like, did I really stay home and do online school? But I think
Mhm.
the beauty within that is that I learned to do it both ways. I now know that I can adapt to both ways. And I love the
Mhm.
fact that the teachers are still using the resources. I learned so much that I probably would have learned, but not at such a quick pace. I
Yeah.
learned how to do some really amazing PowerPoints. You learned all the little things to like help you like check your essays and to like check your grammar and your spelling. You learned all these little tricks and
Mhm.
tips on how to navigate this online world that I don't think I ever would have learned as quickly if I was in school. So I'm really glad that the teachers are still like, because went to school, you have to bring all these like cardboard to school to do presentation. You gotta write it on a little
Mhm.
notepad. It's a whole I guess someone won't
Yeah.
have that experience, but we had it. Um, but I guess I'm liking the fact that some teachers are still, and even the older ones, they're still leaning a bit or trying to incorporate the technology because I think it's very important in this day and age for children to have an understanding. Because I did it at fourth and fifth form, but I cannot imagine the fact that some children had. I think at one point some children were in high school, but they had not gone to school since like grade five.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
I, I mean, I
Mhm.
can't imagine the person that would be if I didn't have grade five and six, form
And you
one,
went straight into high
yeah,
school back
straight
in.
into high school. So I think that transition was a bit challenging. I know, no, this was never a perfect situation, but I think for us, the pandemic came at a quote unquote perfect time.
Yeah.
Um, because we had all of primary school, enough of high school to know what's going on and to be involved. And well, by the time it was a bit over, we were transitioning to exams. So I think it sort of came at like, you know, a goodish time. So yeah, for me, first, I know some children really, really struggle. Um, but for me, my mother didn't have to run me down. She didn't have to, no teacher didn't have to call to say, oh, she's not
Mhm.
handing in her work, she's not doing this. For me, I'm very much like of my own accord. I'm gonna get this work done, whether I like it or not, because I know that I cannot stand seeing that missing when I go. I like to see when you go into the classroom and you have like all the done and all the marked. All yeah,
Mhm.
that's me. You know, sometimes you just gotta get it done and try your best. I'm always saying I have the resources, especially in an online situation. Obviously, sometimes in class you do the best you can, which may not
Mhm.
always be the best. But when I'm at home in the comfort of my own home, internet, I have all day to myself. I'm going to try to do my utmost best and not the bare minimum. And I think it really did pay off. Um, uh, and so sometimes I have to tell myself, you're not online anymore. Sometimes this is near impossible. Um, like you can't do all this workload that you would have wanted to take on because when you were online, you were online. This is, this is not as simple as waking up and rolling out of your bed, getting ready within half an hour and going. This is a process now, and you're back in real time, and things don't always work the same. But for me in general, I think that was it was better than most. My online experience and then back to in person was better than most. Yeah.
And I think that the efforts that you would have put in to get your work done shows true in your grades. Congratulations to you again
Thank
to all
you.
of your CSEC passes. I am extremely proud. I mean, we've only known each other for a short period. When you sent it, I felt like it was my grades going through. I was like, I'm so happy. One thing that I love that you pointed out was you having to adapt. So, in comparison, I was in UG when the University of Ghana when the pandemic hit, and like you said, we didn't expect our last day on campus to be our last day on campus. We're now heading into semester break, which is about 1 week, and then when you come back, you're right into midterms. So I think I was in my second year, now heading into semester two. This would have been, I think, midway semester one, now heading into semester because it was a bit after Christmas. And we went on to semester break, and then they sent out this advisory that we're going to be home for the next week. And I'm like, okay, well, an extra week to study. I can stay home. I was so happy. And then week one passed, week two passed, week three passed. And I'm like, okay, something is wrong here. What is going on? And then on top of that, I'm looking at the news, and I talked about this to you, and I said this in another episode, the episode before this one, that I was looking at the news and I started getting really anxious. Like my
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, or I already knew that I had really bad anxiety. My anxiety started to spike a bit more because you're reading about all of these cases, you're hearing about all of these deaths, and it starts to weigh on you. So, added to the fact that you're now transitioning into something that you've never had to experience before, and then you're hearing about all of these different things. This is a it's a new disease. We've never seen this before. And I am a visual learner. Like, I need to be in person to really grasp what it is that you're saying to me. And being in the comfort of my home, I had to learn self accountability because nobody is going to be next to me in my ear telling me, Elisa, you have to get your work done. Like my parents, my mother's a teacher, my dad is in construction, but they're very big on academics. So you had to guess it. There was no in between it. You gotta, the grades need to come. Otherwise, you'll sit through an entire lecture. And I don't like that. So I had to say to myself, look, if you're not going to get it done, nobody's going to take your laptop or your device and get it done for you. And another thing that we had to notice is that a lot of persons were not privileged enough to even have devices
Yeah.
to get the work done. So while you're taking it for granted, somebody else wishes that they were in your position, wishes that they were able to get the work done, put in the extra, and you're here, you're slacking off, and you're not doing it. So it took me a great period to get accustomed to adjust. And now that I've adjusted, I think, as you said, we've learned how to make use of things like PowerPoint, Google Meets, Gmail. Now, the first thing I do when I get home is to check my
Yeah.
emails, or as soon as I get up, I'm straight into my emails to see if I've got anything new. I'm on to Moodle, that's UG's platform, to see if a lecturer would have posted something, check through my notes. And as you said, also, I don't think I would have picked up on all of those qualities had I been in person all the time. It would have taken a while for me to adjust and get accustomed to things. Editing is something I've never seen myself doing. And now it's like second nature to
Yeah.
me. There's Grammarly, you've got the paraphrasing tool Quillbot that does amazing in terms of assisting in certain things. So the pandemic, I mean, it had its pros and cons. And also for me, it was also difficult for me to understand that I wouldn't be seeing my friends in real time. Like, I think that was something I struggled with a lot. I'm an introvert, but to be forced to stay in my house for long periods of time was kind of difficult. So we made use of things like Discord, WhatsApp video calls, Skype, and I haven't used Skype since probably like 2010. Skype, Google Meets, Microsoft Teams. There's a plethora of different apps that we can use and platforms that we can make use of. And, it's really good because, as you said, some students had it as young as grade four, grade five. And I got the chance to see both spectrums. So my mom is a teacher, and I know she was doing classes from home. So those little babies, sometimes they were so distracted being on a phone screen, they're seeing themselves, they're seeing their friends, they want to interact. They can't interact because it's you and miss.
Yeah.
So you can't cross talk. There's no, secret telling. Everybody can hear what it
Yeah.
is. And even my mom, she took some time to adjust to the media. She's probably not going to want me to say this, but the media and technology and Zoom was a new thing for everybody. And now it's like second nature for us to come on here and say, let's host a Zoom meeting and record. But before, we probably couldn't even see ourselves making this the new normal. So, moving on to the next question. How instrumental were your family and friends in terms of your transition from in person to virtual and then back from virtual to in person teaching?
Um, Actually, so when we when we had to end up staying home, one thing is I think probably April would have this year would have been the last, but because my mom's at a department now, as an officer, um, in breakdown. But before, when I was home, she was home, the times correlated because teacher and student. And so she was home. Um, but that was before that started. So as I said, she doesn't stay home, so she did go out in September.
Mhm.
Dad always had to go to work. Police officers never stop working. Uh, he's in information technology and communications and stuff like that. So, never stop working. So he was out, but when I started online, as I said, I didn't have my own laptop as yet. But my mom actually had just gotten her Chromebook, and you're using the Google platform. Best thing
Yeah.
you could have is a Chromebook. And so I had a profile for me, and then she had hers.
Mhm.
So I just logged into mine for my stuff whenever I needed it. And then I think last August, yes, last August, I had gotten my laptop. My godfather had gotten it for me since my birthday that year. My birthday's in March.
Mhm.
But, he didn't have anybody to send it down with. And anyway, and so I had got my own device. At the time, we were doing uh, rotation, as you would call it. But for me, for my family, that was our dynamic. Um, at one time, one was in with me, and then one was out for most of the time. And then another time, both were out, and I was at home. So, um, for me, it wasn't as if, for some reason, I didn't think, oh, if I don't do this work, they're gonna find out. I think I just did the work, which is very, very strange. I don't know, but I just did the work. But that was a dynamic for us for until now. Um, so it's just us. And then I think it was really helpful. My outings were we would go to Bounty Supermarket once a month. I mean, like you would need things in between, so mom would just pick that up or when daddy, pick those little things up. But that was my outing. I would make sure because even like church and stuff like that, like you couldn't go to.
Mhm.
So I would make sure that I am prepared up and ready on Sundays to go to the supermarket to just get some to just get out of the house. And then I used to live over the river in Podrine, and so at the time my grandmother was living somewhere else in the same street. When we moved here to Providence, she moved into the house that we were living in because it's her house. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so she was there, but in our yard, I grew up around a bunch of people. In the front of my yard, I had my cousin living, and then you walk down a little bit more. You had another set of cousins and family, and then upstairs was my great aunt and my cousins, and then us downstairs. So I had a lot of family, a lot of children, a lot of people around. Um, and so that's kind of how I grew up. Saturday and Sunday, everybody come on the step. You talk, you
Mhm.
shout from in front of the yard, you shout from behind. That was like, and everybody, even if they weren't living in the yard, everybody's living in the same street. My grandmother would come down every single night at around 5 o'clock, and then she would walk her back up the road at around 7, 8 o'clock. If it was too late, my dad would just drop her or walk her. But it's a street, everybody knows everybody, so really it was very safe. Um, so that was the dynamic. We would just go over the river some Sundays and spend the day, but um as independent as I was, I think my parents just provided me with the resources and the rest was on GPL. um, Honestly.
Mhm.
And so they gave me my space. They kind of just like asked what you did at school. I think the reason I did the work was because I know they didn't bombard me asking me. So I was like, I don't want them to bombard me. So I'm gonna do the work,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So it wasn't me doing the work because they were bombarding me because I'm like, I don't want you
You
to.
don't want-
So I did it out of my own free will. So that was it. It wasn't really anything. I know some people had some people had to travel to go get internet, and people had to like
Mhm.
borrow and share devices with siblings. There's a fight in the household when you had to like you know, your sister is in primary school or in secondary school over there, or your brother, or multiple people in school, and then you have your device. If you have multiple devices, but some children are like, I can't come to this class now. I'm going to do the homework because I have somebody who's there. There's not GPL or GCNT problem, or and then you're fighting to hear this and this. And I know some children have to go to work with their parents
Yeah.
to get the internet because they have to use it. And I know some children at the school my mom is at, before she went to the department, she's still at that school because they're not confirmed yet. They heard a lot of stories in the primary school. And they were like, some children, their parents are still at the market, and they're like, well, I have to go with a phone to work, and the children are
Yeah.
at home. So again, I was very blessed and very lucky that I had the space and the resources and everything to just, and I guess the will to just,
Mhm.
because it was very much easy to just say, I don't want to go to this class, I don't want to do this homework. It's very, very easy to just say that. It's also very easy to go to the class and not listen, but it's something I sort of caught myself doing in a couple. But I was very lucky in that aspect that it wasn't a complicated situation for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand. And indeed, a lot of persons didn't even have the resources to join those classes. And as you said, similarly with my mom, I had to hear a lot of parents, like she'd have meetings virtually and I'd listen. A lot of parents would say, Miss, I can't afford to, the internet. And then sometimes you'd have to put a data plan and,
Yeah.
it doesn't work out because of the megabytes and so on. And it's kind of disheartening because she teaches grade four. I think she's in grade three at the time. And those are children now heading in from grade two. So grade three, I believe, is that point where you're molding that child to head
Yeah.
into the exam class. That's grade four. So if they're missing pertinent information that they would need at that grade four level, I can only imagine what would happen because it's grade four, grade three, grade four, you're still online. Then you're
Mm-hmm.
heading into grade five, you're still online. You're going into grade six to write the exam to get your schools. And possibly you're still online. So they're now heading into grade six, and you've got to write this big exam that everybody assumes is going to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And really, I think senior secondary schools, the division between senior secondary schools and junior secondary schools is just an illusion.
Mm.
Like you can do just as well as somebody in one of those top schools at a junior secondary. And personally, I'm a bit biased. I think students at junior secondary schools tend to do a lot better because to them, they've got something to prove,
Yeah.
right? And they excel just as well as anybody else. So for me to understand that children at grade three, some of them couldn't even join the classes because I know mommy had like about 4 persons in the classes every day out of about 22 persons. So that's telling, right? And then you're moving from grade three, you don't have the knowledge. And I'm just assuming that some of the parents probably did not get the chance to work with them because remember, they're working, they've got jobs too. So you're heading into grade four without the necessary knowledge that you would need at grade three, heading into grade five again, into grade six, you've got to write that exam. You're under a lot of pressure because it's just not there. The preparation is not there. Then you get your school disappointed, and it's really not your fault.
Yeah.
It's just that circumstances at the time it wasn't the best. So I think for us, the older ones, we had a bit of an easier time in terms of transition because our level of understanding is different and accountability at our age is necessary. Kudos to those students at grade three that had accountability
Yeah.
and could say, I'm going to pay attention
Yeah.
because if I was this age, I don't know if
I
I would have been listening to this. My cartoon in the back would have been a bit
yeah.
more important. So, yeah, that was it. What I also wanted to find out in the space of COVID and the pandemic, a lot of conversation about mental health and mental health awareness happened. And I know for myself, I've been candid about it. I would have dealt with depression during that period of time and coming to the realization that that was what I was dealing with. And high functioning depression looks like day-to-day person. Like you're all smiles, but you're really dealing with a lot. Was there ever a period during that time at home that your mental health started to take a toll?
I think for me, it wasn't necessarily because I was at home.
Yeah.
Um, I think when you were talking about like the transition in grades, I was
Mhm.
just I kind of just clicked for me that third form is like the last year you have with your class. I think only probably like a couple of schools keep from form 1 to 5, and then when you get into form 4, you kind of figure out your classes separately, but you're still in the same homeroom. But for us and most schools, you were streamed off at fourth form. So
Mhm.
I kind of now remembering that that was like we kind of robbed of that last year, just
Mhm.
us before friendships change, people change, subjects
Yeah.
change, lives change. So yeah, I think I did think about it a little bit, but the pandemic itself and being home, even now being home, well then being home since June after exam was finished. I'm I think I'm way too much of a homebody for my own good. I love being at home. I
Mhm.
love being at home so much. Um, but as I said, I think just the year before 2019, we moved to Providence, so I didn't have that close family next to me anymore.
Yeah.
But that was not like a trigger or a push. But what I would say is that, um, like just of my own self, like hear all this, and like when you go into high school you have such a different perspective. There's so many different people have bigger conversations when you get into secondary school, and you learn about so many things. So even before the pandemic I was like, you're hearing these different words, what mental health this, and then it's like what you would hear of it before from your parents were not the best examples, you know
Mhm.
so you have to
Mhm.
sort of form your own narrative. And I think that is so, so important because
Yeah.
even still here, especially among older folks, sometimes it's unconscious ignorance, but then again, Google is there.
Yeah.
You read up in books, on the internet, and you're like, oh, like I think I did that as early as I was in like first or second form. So I've been
Mhm.
introduced to like this whole world of mental health for a little while now. And so you mentioned something, and I was like, yeah, like, and so when you get down the rabbit hole, you're like, the the denial for me is like the worst. Like when people would talk about like, the 5 stages of grief, I know essentially like the scientist or the psychologist, whoever did it, she did it on terminal patients, but it
Yeah.
works. But what I have to say is that it may not work in that exact order, but it works. And it doesn't only work for like death grief. It works for so many like other things
6:55 p.m.
because
13 notifications.
because like for me it was like you have to like deny. It's like the denial is probably like the worst part of realizing something might not be like right with
Yeah.
you in that headspace. And then it's like, okay, how, and it's like and it's also, it's like not, it's like almost like the self manipulation of like, oh, like it's not that deep, it's not that serious, like people going through way worse, like why is this affecting me like this, like the worst case scenario didn't happen, why am I having this reaction? And so there's a lot of bargaining in that. And then in that also comes like you're angry at the fact that it happened. So essentially for me, yeah, and so there's like the whole thing, and then the acceptance of it all, that okay, I'm here. What do you do about it now? Because not necessarily from okay, when I say personal, I mean um personal as in, should I say adjacent, as in this is one that happened, I saw it happen to somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if this is like right or wrong of me, but having like gone through my own little bit of that, I have so much less sympathy for for it, which is strange. You would think you walk those shoes, you would be even more sympathetic. Obviously,
Mhm.
everybody's story is different, but I've known people. I remember there's this song lyric that says, "You know how long I've had to fight to be living my life." And
Yeah.
literally, some people, fight, and I'm looking at others, and obviously situations are completely different. but it's like at some point you have to take responsibility
Yeah.
for your own well-being, because unfortunately, the hard reality is your boss doesn't care, your teacher doesn't
Yeah.
care, sometimes your family doesn't care. I think at some point you're going to have to care and stop while acknowledging that, yes, I have this. And at some point, you're going to have to start to care for yourself and say,
Mhm.
I'm going to have to work to get through this because I cannot be inconveniencing other people and missing out on opportunities for myself, which
Yeah.
is not as easy as it sounds because it's so much more complex. But then you're seeing people there and and it's for some reason it's like, which is very easy because depression and anxiety, it's after a while it messes with you to the point where it feels like
Mhm.
home. It feels
Yeah.
comfortable. It's the only
Mhm.
state that and so it's
Yeah.
very easy to just go. It's instead of like climbing, it's just very easier to like,
Bask
let
in
me
it.
just stay right here because
Yeah.
this feels comfortable to me as miserable as I am. And so it's, you see a lot of people and it's like, I understand, but it's at some point it's like, when are you going to stop feeling sorry for yourself? How much longer can you, and for me, you know, low functioning depression is the depression that they want to see, but it's
Yeah.
the depression that they don't want. High
Mhm.
functioning
Yeah.
depression is the depression that they want to see, but
Mhm.
they don't want to see, but it's the one that they want to believe.
Yeah, it's the one that they glamorize the
Yeah, the one
most.
that they glamorize.
Mhm.
And so I think you have these two kinds, and I always look at this as it's a spectrum. I
Mhm.
hardly look at things as plain black and white. Even some things that are black and white, I tend to be like, maybe we can have a bit more of a, let's see if we can challenge this perspective a little bit. So
Mhm.
when it comes to that high functioning, you really, especially with high functioning, you really can gaslight yourself into thinking there's nothing wrong with me
Yeah.
because I don't look like I'm depressed. I
Mhm.
don't, I don't, my surroundings don't seem as if I'm depressed. I'm perfectly fine.
Mhm.
Nobody thinks anything is wrong with me. I don't have
Yeah.
those telltale signs. Um, because those are the telltale signs that people are like wanting to say, oh, you have this, but they're also the signs that they don't want to have to deal with because that's the uglier side of of it. You
Mhm.
know, they want, so it's that side of it that's really hard to come by where it's literally chaos, like up here. But for some reason, I don't know if it's because who we are in nature that we're still there. Because I have chunks of months missing. 'Cause I don't remember anything from it. But like you look at a report card of mine or how I did online school, and it's like soaring grades, flying
Mhm.
colors. Ask friends, maybe they would have to think about it. And this is a a good example without saying too much is I had a friend that was going through a lot when she was writing exams. And sometimes I sit and I feel so guilty because for the life of me, now looking back, I could tell, oh, maybe there were some signs. Because
Yeah.
she had some things going on. But then I guess exams, like everybody's like, you're trying to help other people, you're trying to fight for yourself. But I'm looking back and I'm like, geez, like I didn't even notice. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I was just so caught up, So people are also caught up, but you know, there's there's some uh some like parts of my, what I was maybe would have gone through where I can sit down and define where it was. I remember so in February 2021, a couple of things were happening. And I think I remember one day in May. So it took me about February, March, April, May, about 3, 4 months to like. So one day in May, I just think I was just like doing something. I think I was just doing my hair. And I paused and I was like, I'm fine. I think that was like the first time in May where I was like, I think I'm I think I'm fine. I think I'm okay. I'm like randomly just had this moment of consciousness where I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Like, like I went through that, came through it, thought it would never end. And I'm like, I think I could actually manage seeing to live the rest of my life a bit. So that can also happen. Sometimes it might happen without you even noticing, and other times it can happen you actively noticing, oh, I'm getting better. Because also another thing with high functioning is that because it's high functioning and because you function essentially in the same way that you're on the outside, you yourself don't even realize, oh, there's this one thing that I would not have done when I was going through that I'm doing now. Because it's masked very easily even to us as individuals experiencing that. And a lot of people would be like, time heals or time this or time that. I believe it. Depends. I agree with it. I subscribe to the idea sometimes. And I know it's a phrase that a lot of people don't like to hear, especially when they're going through something. I don't necessarily think that time might heal in that medicinal sense, but I think just as humans, we move with the time.
Mm-hmm.
Time and tide, it just doesn't wait for anybody. And at some point, maybe it's a survival instinct that kicks in that we just have to move on because some
Yeah.
people go through some unfathomable things and I'm like, how do you move on? Like physically, I think mentally even, I think a lot of human beings wouldn't survive the things that they survive if it wasn't for our brain saying survive now um physically and then check in
Mm-hmm.
with yourself later. I think our
Yeah.
bodies instinctively saying that it's fighting to survive on its own, even when everything else tells you to fall apart and to break down and to do this and to do that. So, I'm really glad that the conversation is changing a bit. I think up to the other day they signed that bill or something they
Uh,
signed, yes, that said
yeah.
I think
Mm-hmm.
you can imprison people if they've committed suicide or attempted to commit suicide. Because it was always
Yeah.
like I always say this. Imagine you decide to attempt to commit suicide and you don't, there's already, I think, I don't know, maybe disappointment that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then
And then
it's,
there's
and then they're
stigma.
like,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
then they're like throwing you in jail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's
Because
like,
you're already being judged from the outside world.
yeah,
Most times in Ghana, they
yeah,
publicize it, you know. So there's already a stigma attached. Okay, you would have tried to commit suicide, and everybody starts to chime in. And
mm-hmm,
social media is not kind
yeah,
to
everybody
people.
has an opinion.
Yeah, everybody has an opinion, and I think now we're starting to understand how sensitive it is,
Mm-hmm,
right? Because you could have been in that position. Anybody could have been in that position. And you don't know what was somebody's trigger or when is their lowest point because just like you and I, they could be functioning and they could be dealing with high functioning depression, right? You can't tell. You can't tell. They might be smiling and laughing with you, and in their head, it's like so many things going on. I'm sorry, I cut you off, but yeah.
yeah,
So,
and so for me it was always like, then they throw you in jail.
mhm,
And I think another thing that people say is like, oh, they were idle or they had nothing to do or like
mhm,
this and all like that. I'm like, and even before like I understood personally, I just always was never of the belief that that was the case because to even if you haven't experienced it and if you have, unfortunately,
mhm.
to literally drive you to that point of literal, it's not even insanity, to be that low. Like, I don't think people understand the severity or how grave it is to literally take your own life and then to not only take it if it's successful because you're done and gone, no coming back, but to attempt it and then have to continue living.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand the severity. Like, can you like do people ever sit and think of how low somebody has to be to like to end
Want to commit suicide. Yeah.
like that? Like, whew, like, and I think also people don't realize that that's a spectrum. You have active ideation, you have passive ideation, and there's a difference. There's a lot of people who are like they're gonna kill themselves, like, and it's very much an active thing. They plan for it. They maybe self-harm in different ways. And then there's the people who are more on the passive side where I think that passiveness is a lot of the things some people don't realize how passive the passive is. It's just
Yeah.
things as I don't want to be here, like if I could just disappear for like 24 hours or live
Mhm.
outside my body for like 2 days, if I can just close my eyes and like don't wake up. Or some people like, you could even say, what if I like, don't die, but like don't be here for a certain amount of time and to just like, I would say to just wake me up when my life is like at the stage where I can take over. And so I
Mhm.
think people realize that it doesn't just look like this. The warning signs
Yeah.
don't just look like this. They have so many other faces. And I think our problem in society is that we want a one option answer. I
Yeah.
think we need to start looking at life as a multiple choice test. And those stems of the multiple choice have even more branches. Everything is not a one
Mhm.
size fits all, and a
Yeah.
lot of times, you know, people can drown or sink in different depths. Somebody might be really affected by their animal dying, and you might have somebody over here that's like, oh, but my mom just died. Obviously, in the world view, they're gonna be like, well, obviously her mother
One.
trumps her cat
Yeah.
or her dog.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
to these two individuals, this is their story. To that
Mhm.
person, that animal might have been their thing, their last thing. And so that
Yeah.
for some unknown reason, not you can't understand, can't comprehend a trigger for that person. And you're like, well, this person whose mother just died over here is fine. They're
Yeah.
fine as can be. Or you're like, well, this person's mother just died. They should be allowed to grieve, not you. And I always say, do
Mhm.
not compare. People always say, don't compare on social media. Do not compare your
Yeah.
own struggles. Do not do
To
it to
someone else.
yourself.
Mhm.
Even if somebody's doing it to you, do not do it to yourself. You deserve the time to grieve, to hash it out with yourself, to do this with yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's your scenario, it's your circumstance. And I just think the conversation is shifting, but I'm gonna be honest, it's shifting probably a bit slowly or slower than we would have thought. But I think any progress is better than no progress, and I'm very happy that the people of my age group,
Yeah.
whether they talk about it or not, I think they're more aware than our parents and grandparents, and I think that's important to have because at some point we're going to have to take over. Um, so I'm glad that the conversation is very much there, and a lot of people, even if they don't talk about this in a serious tone, it's talked about. People talk to their friends
Yeah.
about it. It's talked about. So many
Mhm.
things happen with conversations. Conversations are so important. You have to have those friends and people with you that you can joke about the most ridiculous things that are not supposed to be joked about to
Yeah.
then having conversations where you can have people that are like, oh, I'm here for you. Like that same friend I was telling you about that had things going on when we were writing exams.
Yeah.
Um, I made a joke, not about mental health, just something. I made a joke about something she said before. And then she just dropped it on me and my other friend in the group. And we're like, oh, like, why would you like,
Yeah.
oh, and so we were like, and I think it was at that point, about 2 months after the exam, that she just felt, results were about to come out. She just felt okay enough, and I'm really happy that we provided that space for her. It was a bit
Mhm.
unexpected. I had to have like a bit of an awkward laugh with myself, and the thing is, me and my friend were truthful. I was actually like, "Girl, like I'm sorry, but I have to laugh." I'm like, I had to
Mhm.
laugh because I could not believe what I was seeing because the stories that this girl was telling me, oh, like I don't know,
It was
but
a
I'm
lot.
I'm
Mhm.
really happy that we created that space for her and that I
Yeah.
we have that space to talk about it, and it's really not something. I find it very much easier to talk about it to maybe even like friends or with you or like strangers than honestly with any like older person. It's just
Mhm.
a different level of understanding and a
Yeah.
different level of like knowing and knowledge and it's just so different. And it's always really so sad when I see people my age or even younger or older who I don't know if it's nurture that they're not quite there yet, but it's good to see that we as a generation here are um, are very much more aware. I think that's great.
Yeah. I Something that I held on to that you said just now. having a safe space in your circle is so important, right? And oftentimes, I think we're more receiving of understanding that somebody else outside of yourself is going through something than receiving that you are personally dealing with
Mm,
something. And I say this all the time, but I find some sort of solace in helping my friends deal with their problems. But then when the role needs to reverse and
mm,
I've got to be the one that needs to be vulnerable and say, well, look, something is wrong with me, it takes me having to put my pride aside
yeah, yeah,
to come and say,
I get that.
guys, I'm not here mentally. Like
Yeah,
right now, I'm dealing with
checked
it.
out.
Like I can give you, yeah, personal experience. This year has been like one of the best years in my entire life. But I would have gone through the deaths of two really important persons to me in the space of a few weeks, one after the other in 1 month. So I think I was dealing with the same campaign, UN campaign, and it's on mental health, right? And having to have conversations with persons on mental health and mentally I was not there,
Yeah.
did not sit well with me. So I was like, you know what, I can't do anything because I'd be a hypocrite to sit here and tell people, oh, talk about it. And I wasn't talking about it. And my friends had reached out and they're like, Lisa, you're not okay. And I'm like, I'm fine. It's grief, you'll get over it. And they're like, no, you're not okay. You're starting to withdraw and you're this. And I'm like, why are they telling me about me? Because you start to get prideful, like,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with me. Why are they telling me that there's something wrong and I'm fine? Right? But to know that you've got people around you that notice the little things about your personality or notice the little things about things that you're used to doing, right? And they can pick up the phone and say, look, you haven't done this, so what's wrong? Do you want to talk about it? And unfortunately, a lot of persons aren't privileged enough to have those conversations or privileged enough to have the safe space. Because even outside of my friends, I've got a really great family structure in terms of background. Like I can go to both of my parents and tell them, look, this is what it is. And I mean, it might take a while for them to process because they're parents. At no point do you want to hear your child come and tell you that they're dealing with a lot.
Yeah.
But the understanding is what we want most times, just to have somebody that can be there and process and observe all that you need to give out for that period. Because sometimes just letting it out is therapeutic,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as you said, your friend held it in for a really long period of time. And then finally she said, you know what? I can trust my friends. I can sit here, I can talk to them. And you laughing probably helped her so much. So no reason to feel bad about it. I'm the laugher too. I can never take things seriously. So having that safe space within your circle is important, and having like-minded people around you who can hold you accountable when you're going through things, because oftentimes there there are times where you're at fault. Like even if it's like a small conflict or whatever it is, if you've got friends that can tell you, look, I don't agree with what you did. This isn't fine. You've got to do something about it.
Yep.
You've got to have friends that can hold you accountable. You can't have people around you that are always there for your actions and say, yeah, what you would have done is fine. You can go ahead. No, those are not your friends.
Yeah.
You've got to find new people, because if you've got people like that around you all the time, there's
You're
going
never
to be
gonna
no
grow.
accountability and you're
Yeah.
never going to grow. And growth is important, and understanding that the people that you're friends with at 10, you're probably not going to hold those same friends when you're 16 or 20 or 25. I mean, it's rare for you to have those persons around you still that you can grow together, and that's amazing. But sometimes everybody's in your life for a period, and whatever period it is that they're going to be there, cherish them. And I don't believe in talking down on people that would have served that period, whether it is that you would have fallen out over something that was really drastic, or even something as petty as you having the conversation to say, look, we've outgrown each other. That is that. Or not even having the conversation. Sometimes it's a mutual agreement silent that, look, we would have outgrown each other. It's not even about levels or I'm here and you're here. It's just I'm at the period of my life where I can't take you along with me. and this is just where it is. So my next question, and this is my final question, what would be your advice to someone actively dealing with mental health problems? And also, what would be your advice to somebody trying to figure out what it is that they want to do heading up to fifth form?
So for that first part,
Mm-hmm.
I remember this was something that happened in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think I had a bit of 2019. Anybody asks me like, oh, what was it for you? I probably would say either 2019 or 2021. And I remember probably this started late 2019, early 2020. I think it's something called rumination. I would literally list everything off from January to whichever month that I was in that was wrong with my life. Don't do it. But I did it. And so any advice with somebody dealing with that or with any sort of issue is that when you're out of it or through it, I think you can't skip ahead. It unfortunately doesn't work like that. You have to like feel everything. It's so when you have realized that I am out of it, to evaluate and to have some self introspection and to say, okay, this is what happened, this is what I did, this is how I reacted. And I think a lot of people don't see the circumstance, they don't see what was thrown at somebody, they only see the reaction or the response, but they never question why. And so you have to sit with yourself and you have to see why. And also I think for me, I was really scared for a long time. And even sometimes still not, when is the other shoe going to drop? And as I said, it's a very comfortable place to be in because it's like, what's the point of getting this far and then this other shoe drops and I'm exactly right back where I started. So I think you have to do enough work so that even if something else happens to you, you have to be okay with dealing with it, but also probably not getting as deep as you once were because you know how to handle it. And so that I think that's really important, knowing yourself and knowing how you would react. And so the second or the third time it happens, you have to say that. I remember for me in 2021, as I said, I would answer worst year 2021. But I realized through that, and some advice I have is that just because something bad happened doesn't make it a bad year. I had the best last half of 2021, but the first half was absolute chaos and a trash dump. But consciously or unconsciously, even for me, I say 2021. And then I remember, oh, but it was a good year. I did a lot of things that I wanted to do at the end, like the last 6 months of that year. But that couple of months still linger. And so I think it's important to probably feel, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, don't go Google this. Don't go on like a social media website and do this because they're always going to say you have something right. But I think you have to have good intentions with it. I know they're like, oh, don't self-diagnose, but I think without that, probably would have still been in denial, So you have to tread lightly with that and to look around you for resources to try to figure out what's wrong with you because it's a very privileged statement to say don't self-diagnose because not everybody has the access to healthcare or to therapy. It's not even talked about. And so, when people ask for things like advice, I'm like, what advice can I really give other than you're actively working through it every single day of your life, which might seem exhausting. But I think just for me, I listen to music every morning when I get ready. I like very sad music. I don't know why. When I'm happy, I listen to the beat, and when you're sad, you can relate to it. But find something that you like doing and actively work on learning to do that. I love creating my playlist. I love listening to music in the morning, having my mind occupied. I love to read, something like that, but also don't run away from it. Running away from it is just never going to be the options. There's some days where you literally feel like, how deeper can this hole get? at one point I was like, let's see what's gonna take me out first. Let's
Yeah.
see how let's see let's have a competition to see how much worse this can get for me. Um so I think at the end of the day you just have to, and as I said, your body and your brain, they're going to kick in and they're going to instinctively go into survival mode. So I probably didn't give any good advice there, but I think just try your best and take it day by day, because really and truly when you're in it, there's nothing like it. So I don't think I honestly don't think I think I did majority of the work when you were out of it than when you're in it. Because for me, I don't remember any of when I'm in it. Unfortunately, I don't know why my memory, I guess brain is just protecting itself that you don't remember those like harder times. I don't know if that was like any helpful advice because it was kind of all over the place, but um
It was.
that was
It
what
was.
I got from me personally, and from like what other people would say, and what you would like read. But I think honestly, take it by 24 hours or just take it by an
Mm-hmm.
hour and just, you know, try your best to fight for yourself.
Yeah. And our final question, what would be your advice to someone that
Yes.
is heading from fifth form, trying to figure out what it is that they need to do with their life?
Heading into fifth form,
No, heading out of fifth
out
form,
of fifth
sorry.
form.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I did not expect how like you coming out of fifth form expecting these exams. I was like, okay, you're over, it's done, and then you're just like, oh, okay. I
There's more.
was like, okay, I'm done for now. But it's like that was, I don't know how I did. I'm like, you're gonna start up a limbo in between, like a constant state of very much, I don't know. And I
Yeah.
think I once heard somebody say, I don't know isn't always a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you have to know certain things. You have to have ideas in your head and goals. But sometimes, I don't know, leave space for perspective. There's a lot of people that I wish I was one of them that was so confident in what they want to do that you wonder if life throws something else at them, how they're going to react.
Yeah.
If life throws a difference at them, how they're going to react. So I think even if you're so sure of yourself, you have to leave a little bit of space for the I don't know, for the unknown. Obviously, you don't want to sail through life. I'm not saying to sail through life and to like, because you're not going to end up anywhere. And we don't want anybody to not end up anywhere. But, um, and again, take it one at a time. You just finish these exams and then you're home, or everybody's at school, and the week after exams are gonna fly out, and you're gonna be like, well, oh again, because it's like I'm done. What do I do now? You have options. I know a lot of my friends continue with me, sixth form, different school, same school. A lot of them went to UG. A lot of them did some course. Some people went overseas, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's some people that are still going, some people went to work, but some people that are still going to be figuring it out. There's going to be a lot of people who are, number one, unfortunately, are going to be left behind. You see that in life all the time. People are still, you know, the older they get, and it's like they're still like, trying to be, they're still 10 steps behind everybody. And then you see some people who are trying to figure it out right now, but then something's gonna click and they're going to shoot faster than any of us. Um, and so I think honestly, it's just probably like you have time to figure it out. I also heard somebody said if you don't get it when you're 20, you can get it when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50. You have a couple decades of your life to figure it out. Obviously, here in this part of the world, we're probably not afforded that space and that privilege to do such. But I think just try to keep as sane as possible. It's a lot because all of a sudden you're out and they threw you into an exam. Now they're throwing you out, literally. You have to be back home and you have to like start to figure out what you want to do. Because I'm in school and a lot of children, in arts, you're like, oh, like I'm just back here because, well, I need a couple of years. I needed 2 more years. So when you're coming out of fifth form, I think it's really important to feel, and even if you're not somebody that likes school and like the school, to allow yourself and to accept that maybe I feel sad, maybe I don't want this to end.
Mhm.
I think you have to, the couple of months or even that first, second week after exam is finished, you have to again, be introspective and say, this is over. And then it's like another whole level when you get the results. Because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, as I was saying, at the end of the day, you're here for 5 years. Most people, some come on, a little bit later. But that's the only thing I think you're doing together. And some people even don't do that. I know there's like a no child left behind policy, but some schools are kind of got to kick you back, because if we're
Yeah.
really being no child left behind, it doesn't make sense that we take you to another grade and you can't keep up. So just redo it. So, a lot of times people leave, people stay back, people come on later, but graduating together, majority of you, the only thing that you're going to do at the same time in life. Everybody else is going to get their first job. Everybody else, I know, um, in other countries, as soon as you're out of high school, it's college or university. While in places like here, I know especially let's use the United States as an example. People are so surprised when they see 30-year-olds and all these people with jobs in their universities. But here in Guyana, that's when people go to university, when they have their own money, sometimes even have their own family. That's when they choose to go to university. I think in Guyana, it's probably seeing younger students at university that's more surprising than seeing older students. So that's another thing. You're going to go to university, whether here or internationally, at a different time. If your plan is to have kids, get married. If it's not, if it is, if your plan is to move away, stay here, everybody is going to go down a different path. The only path that you're walking down at the same time is that graduation aisle. That is the only one that is not honestly even guaranteed right now. So I think at the end of the day, comparison is the breather of jealousy. Nobody likes jealousy. Nobody likes to be compared to anybody. And truly is more exhausting to focus on somebody else than it is to focus on yourself. Focusing on yourself and minding your own business at times. What I think a lot of times in society, or it's a new trend I'm seeing where people they think common decency is apparently not in your best self-interest. There's this whole thing about oh, you don't owe anybody anything. And I mean, I think it started as a good initiative, as in telling people that you don't have to always overachieve or to give more than you're asked. But then I think it was taken over as more of a don't, as more of a you have to be selfish thing, which I think just, you can focus on yourself while still reaching out and having common decency and just being a good person. There's nothing wrong with being a good person. Obviously everybody has their lines and their limits and their boundaries. We don't have to be a selfish, like bad person about it. So just try
Mhm.
to stay on your track and remember that you have a plan and then life has another plan and then God might have another plan, or whatever you believe in might have another plan, honestly. Because there's so many people that have the wildest stories of where they thought that they were going to be and where they were. So, people are going to go on their own path and you have to decide whether you're going to spend time looking at theirs or you're going to focus on yours when you finish fifth form. And I think the qualities that you learn in fifth form really in that exam period really is a true, not the exam itself, I think the things you do to prepare for the exam, everything else besides the result that you get is a true testament to the person that you're shaping, and that we mustn't necessarily forget that, especially leaving, if after that you're finished with high school, you're not going back, that high school person, if you see them 10 years down the line, it's not a testament of who they truly might be. So for leaving high school, I'm going to start at the beginning to enjoy high school in Form 1, to enjoy where you are and to enjoy it when you get there. Because as much as you are going to deny and defy everything your high school tries to instill in you, as in patriotism, at the end of the day, you are going to come back to that and you're going to realize why they instilled it in you, or why they tried to instill that behavior in you. Because as you said, you're going to give anything to go back and do it all over again, except all the work, but the fun stuff. So for me, honestly, when you're leaving, it's to look around the people that you're in first form and to say, this is the class of whatever. These are the people I'm going to be with for 5 years. If you stay throughout the entire and you graduate, that starts at the beginning. And then when you reach that ending, or the first part of that ending for people like me, you truly have to look back and say, not only academically am I proud of myself, but socially and mentally, I'm proud of myself. And you can also say things that you try to change. So leaving fifth form, it's a very, very big transition. One that I'm still transitioning with because I didn't graduate yet, I think we're supposed to graduate next month. So probably until you have that cap and gown on. And the thing is, what I really like about high school with sixth form schools, it's really nice to see, because the fourth formers right now are the children we're going to be graduating with in upper six. And the thing is, the upper sixers, when we were in fifth form that we're graduating with now, we sort of had a little bit of a bond with them when we were all in school together. So it's really nice to, like, two different stages, but you're graduating together with your class and then with a class of children that you sort of had time with. So that's really nice. Just getting to put on that cap and gown and say, I did 5 years and not another day. And even if you did, that's okay. As I said, people have different timelines. But to say that I did it and I survived high school, I think people underestimate, just because you're children, how challenging high school might be for some children. That's just honestly it. I think just enjoy it, man. Like, nothing compares to how either number one, good, or either number two, bad high school is. Your pick, nothing compares to it. You have to nothing at all. But your life is gonna move on. One day, probably gonna be like 10, 20 years in the future, you're probably not gonna remember high school. This stage you're in isn't gonna be forever, I guess. So yeah.
And then sometimes we don't know what would happen in old age. I might be senile. I probably won't remember anything. Oh God forbid. But I agree. My own advice would be to be kind to yourself and try not to compare your process with somebody else's, because all it would do is to weigh on you. Everybody moves at their different paces. So what might be for you would not be for somebody else, and what is for somebody else will not be for you. Understand that it is a learning process. Nothing is going to just come out to the air and happen. So be patient with yourself, accept your timing, and that is about it for me. I need to say thank you again for being
You're
a part of
welcome.
the conversation. For taking some time out of your schedule. I know that you're busy, and I know in the sense of sixth form and IEs, and it's already started.
Already
even though it's
starting.
it's a lot. So thank you so much for taking some time off to be here with me.
Welcome.
Hopefully, I can have you back again when you're done with lower six and you're into upper six, so we can talk about this transition
Yes.
to the university level. I really look forward to all that you'll do in future, and I know that you're going to do great things, because you've got a really good head on your shoulder from the conversations that we've had and what I've seen personally. So thanks again.
And thank you. Thank you.
No problem at all.